There is something interesting happening, though, in terms of you were talking about like the indoctrination about people just willing to go along with whatever's being said. Something interesting happened. We have the story from Timcast.com. Jon Stewart shocks Steven Colbert in Rant about lab leak being the most rational explanation for COVID. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Jon Stewart, appearing on The Late Show with Colbert, had Colbert on the defense. Colbert trying to stop Jon Stewart, who was basically just going off, saying, he's like, you come to me and tell me there's a novel coronavirus that's released and you want to figure out where it came from. Why don't we ask the lab that literally works on the novel coronavirus where it may have came from? And when you ask them, hey, where did this come from? They go, maybe a bat mated with a pangolin. And this is Jon Stewart. He gets up right into the camera. Colbert desperately tries to make it seem plausible that it wasn't China. This is what freaks me out. A lot of people have been saying like, oh, they think we've been infiltrated by China and their influence has taken over. Mike Pompeo said the Chinese Communist Party has infiltrated every facet of government, from city to local to state to federal government. And then you see this. Why is Colbert so desperate? He's like, maybe the lab is there because of all the bats. Bro, there's no bats there. They got the bats from hundreds of miles away. Jon Stewart is right.
Yeah.
Now, and this is interesting. I don't know if Jon Stewart will actually be a wake-up call for regular liberals. Maybe. But Jon Stewart is interesting. He was frozen in carbonite almost. He's like the Han Solo of our generation, right? Back when he was still on the show, he was honest. He praised Project Veritas for their reporting. He would criticize Obama when Obama was deserving of criticism, but he was a liberal. He was a Democrat guy. Not necessarily a Democrat guy, but liberal. He leaves. Now he's coming back in the limelight with a Twitter account, and all of a sudden, the left is calling him a Republican. Colbert says, when did you start interning for Ron Johnson?
Right.
That's creepy. That's creepy level tribalism that Jon Stewart doesn't exist in.
Yeah, it was interesting, too, because the backlash on Twitter was so severe against Jon Stewart, saying things that are not only completely obvious, but have been obvious for a long time, and that the Washington Post recently had to completely walk back everything that they said about the lab leak theory.
I'll be fair to Washington Post. In May of last year, they ran an op-ed talking about lab leak. However, as soon as the Republicans started saying it, Tom Cotton, they were like, oh, this is a conspiracy and y'all are nuts.
Their take on today's issue was pretty telling. They wrote an article, an opinion piece that was titled, Jon Stewart's Rant is a Reminder, Don't Rely on Celebrities for COVID-19 Theories. Meanwhile, this is the same media publication that a few months ago had a headline article saying Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson urges fans to wear masks after he and his family get COVID-19, a real kick in the gut. I mean, obviously, these people don't have any morals, don't have any objective stance on issues. A lot of it is power, a lot of it is ego, but a lot of this is sociopathic, insane criminal behavior, in my opinion, because what Jon Stewart said made absolute sense. He brought and concluded facts that people were talking about for a very long time that have been censored away from the general public. And Stephen Colbert, I don't know what they did to him, but they did something. Because if you remember his show, even on Comedy Central, he was hinting and pointing at issues that were pretty poignant, that were pretty populist, that were pretty important. I remember even talking to him about Bilderberg, which he knew a lot of things about extensively. And now he's literally doing commercials for Big Pharma, promoting the vaccine. In one of the clips, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but he released a video of him dancing around with singing vaccines, telling you how you need to take the COVID-19 vaccine because it is safe, it is effective. Johnson & Johnson are our heroes. Pfizer's going to help you. Literally, it's a sick, disgusting clip of him dancing around and saying, if you're one of my family members, you don't take this vaccine, you're not welcome to any of my events. It was repugnant to say the least, but this is a man that literally it looked like he was doing a commercial for Pfizer.
Look, it's weird how the left has become instantly pro Big Pharma when they were always very critical of it.
They've been pro Big Pharma for a while, I think. I mean, you can see
the establishment, I guess.
Yeah, I think they have been. If you look at, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, when it comes to the vaccines, the biggest issue I take with celebrities giving medical advice is that they're going to write articles saying don't do it. Right? They're saying, oh, Jon Stewart is exactly why I don't listen to celebrities. Colbert's literally doing it. Mm-hmm. I have a friend who is dealing with nerve damage because what we think happened was he was given bad medical advice. What I guess what they're saying is that you need a doctor to tell you if you can get the vaccine. For most people, there's no issues. But if you've had COVID within a certain time frame, there may be an adverse reaction. Don't come to me for advice. I'm telling you a story about my friend. You talk to your doctor to get sound medical advice, right? But I'll tell you this. My friend didn't get that advice. He's now learning about this after the fact, and he's dealing with nerve damage in his arms and legs. I'm not trying to freak people out or plan any conspiracy or anything like that. I'm just saying maybe you shouldn't go to Steven Colbert or Joe Rogan for your medical advice. Maybe if Jon Stewart wants to make a political point about a lab in China, it has nothing to do with whether or not he's advising you to take medication.
Yeah.
They want to come out and claim that Joe Rogan, for making his comments about vaccines, saying if you're young, this is what Joe Rogan said. He said if you were young, you shouldn't get it. I don't think Joe should be giving advice. I don't.
Probably not. Yeah.
I don't think Dr. Fauci should either, because regular people have very specific medical needs their doctor needs to inform them of. So if Colbert is going to come out and do a commercial for Big Pharma and vaccines, it's on the same level as Joe Rogan doing the same thing. You need to talk to a doctor. And if you don't like their opinion, you get a second opinion, you get a third opinion. And I always tell people this, make sure you're not getting a political opinion.
I think that's important. But I do think that the left has been shilling for Big Pharma for quite a long time. They're very interested in promoting all kinds of drugs and turning children who are gender dysphoric into lifelong medical patients. Yeah. This has been going on for quite a while. They were pushing the antidepressants for kids and pushing the, focus medication for kids. They've been doing this for decades.
How can anyone trust Big Pharma after the opioid epidemic? That
That's
ripped through and destroyed middle America, that is still causing severe effects. I mean, but it's not just the Democrats, it's also the Republicans. I mean, Donald Trump wanted to call the COVID-19 vaccine the Trump scene. Right. And he's the one that authorized emergency use of this. He's the one that pushed for this. He's the one that wanted, to be congratulated by Pfizer.
But you also had Kamala Harris and Andrew Cuomo both saying in the fall that basically
they were skeptical
of the vaccines. And then as soon as Joe Biden becomes president,
exactly.
It's, everybody roll up your sleeve.
Yeah.
Can I just read a story for you guys?
Go for it.
This is from The Guardian, Friday, 23 May 2003. Bayer division knowingly sold HIV-infected protein.
Yep.
So I'll put it this way. Look, I'm not a doctor. I don't have all the answers. I can't tell people what to do. That's why I always say you got to go to a doctor. There are a lot of people that tell me like, oh, I don't trust my doctor. And I'm like, dude, if you don't trust your doctor, then I don't know who you trust. Like, you go to a different doctor and you don't trust them. The fact is, when I go to the doctor and they prescribe me some weird name, I don't know what that is. I'll Google it or look it up because ultimately you're responsible for your own health. But we're talking about massive multinational corporations, and they're more concerned with their bottom line. They don't exist to save you. They exist to make money and sell a product. When we can look at history and see Bayer knowingly sold HIV-infected protein, I think it's fair to say you're allowed to be skeptical of massive multinational corporations.
Well, you should be skeptical of that, of course, across the board, no matter what it is that they're selling.
Yeah. Well, they're criminal institutions. If you look at some of the big pharma agencies, I don't even want to mention because I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but if you look at some of the big pharma agencies that are behind some of the medical procedures here, a lot of them have been previously charged with bribery, corruption, have been heavily fined, and have been caught buying off doctors to push for policies along with politicians that mainly benefited them. And when you look at, a lot of people really do not understand the severity of the opioid epidemic and the level of horrendous, horrible addictions that it caused all throughout middle America. And that story is underreported significantly because if you even just drive around, you see entire cities with doctors that were paid off that absolutely ravaged and destroyed them from the very up.
I gotta read the story. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but Luke brought the story before we started. From ABC News, 899 people got expired vaccine doses at Times Square site. Health officials say 899 people received expired COVID-19 vaccine doses. Okay, they just repeat the headline. But anyway, it's from ABC News, reporting from the AP. And that's basically it. They say ATC Vaccination Services, the company that administered the shots under contract to the city, said in a statement, "We apologize for the inconvenience to those receiving the vaccine in question and want people first and foremost to know that we have been advised that there is no danger from the vaccine they received." That's good news. I think what they're saying is that basically it's just ineffective. Like, because it was expired, people basically just got
So the expired
nothing.
part was like it was thawed for too long? Is that the idea?
I don't know exactly. Well, maybe. But the reason I read the story is I don't like the idea that we do these like in front of 7-Eleven medical, procedures. It's like there's a reason why you go to a doctor and ask for advice. They go to school
Yeah.
for this. They're not perfect people. They're regular people, but they specialize in certain fields.
Yeah.
You don't like their opinion, you can always get a second opinion. But when you show up to one of these, like...
This was a pop-up in Times Square that was the former NFL experience. This
Right.
is literally it. And the employees there couldn't look at the expiration date, which is on the product. I mean, that just... How can people have trust in this?
I
I'm-
think, Tim, I think you're onto something too. You know, like you're saying, you know, it's important to have a relationship with your doctor, and it's important to consult your doctor and make a decision. You know, like this is coming from a Canadian. You know, I think Americans, there's a certain decadence to the superiority of the American medical system from any other in the world, and I think it's lost on a lot of Americans. You know, big pharma. And I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying about the opioid epidemic is horrific. And there have been so many issues with big pharma, and I'm not, like, you know, I've heard the stories and I'm not discounting them, and that's important and fair. But there's also a level of personal responsibility that comes into taking medication, you know, and I'm not blaming people who are addicted to heroin for their addiction to heroin, but I mean, well, I should say I'm not blaming. All I'm trying to say is big pharma is important. Big pharma cures cancer. Big pharma, you know, finds polio vaccines too. You know, they're not just pushing a sketchy, rushed, you know.
Well, that was Salk, right? And he gave it away for free, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
But
And
it just
he
feels
did
like-
not. He did not hold that patent.
Like, there's
but
something to be said for a privatized drug industry, because
I
the
agree,
amount
I
of
agree.
R&D, the amount of the breakthroughs that come out of the United States are what keeps the rest of the world afloat.
Yeah.
you know?
I think
about-
I
There's
think
something to be said for
you're right.
just weighing what you're taking, but not necessarily demonizing the people just making whatever and trying to sell it.
Yeah. I think, you know what, I'm going to walk by those statements and say big pharma is our friend. We should never criticize them ever in any way. I'm kidding.
I don't mean that. I just mean that they don't deserve all the flack. You know,
No, they
they
do.
save
They deserve
lives.
to at least be held accountable, and they haven't been, because they've been getting slaps on the wrist and just small fines compared to their profits for the horrible things that they did. Yes, they do some good things, but when you allow big companies to get away with such horrendous, treacherous acts where people who are unsuspecting, people who are trusting, people who believe in the establishment get punished the most for it, you need some ramifications where the executive who made sure that the HIV strain got out there because he wanted to make a buck, that he goes to jail. Not that his company gets a slap on the wrist, gets a little bit of money. He needs to be personally held responsible for his actions, and none of that has
so
happened.
you don't,
Well, of course,
you
but
don't
there's-
think you don't think pharmaceutical companies could be like limited liability companies? Are they? What is the law regarding
Big
pharmaceutical
Pharma
companies
has
then?
no liability when it comes to this vaccine. So if you take it, you get hurt. All the responsibility afterwards is on you as an individual.
What
But
about-
that's a
what
corruption
about
issue.
other-
Like, corruption's disgusting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been any big ramifications with that entire industry that have been significant, and that's why they keep doing it. And unless you hold them accountable, they're going to do another opioid epidemic because they got away with it in the first place.
A lot of this, I think, is also on the insurance companies.
Of course.
And we've seen a complete, decimation of the whole health insurance situation with the ACA, because I don't know if you guys have ever bought your insurance on any of the, ACA exchanges. But it's like every year you buy a plan, and then at the end of, and then you like try and figure out what doctors take it. You try and figure out what your deductible is, which is usually ridiculous. You can't actually ever get to a doctor. It takes a long time to get an appointment, and then the following year it turns out your plan has been discontinued and you have to buy something else.
Yeah.
And every time you have to go through a whole qualification process. Like I was trying to buy insurance this year, and it turned out to be like they want income verification, and I work for a Canadian company, and I'm like, I don't even have what you want.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
The whole system
and then
was a
they
mess.
put my son's in. They were like, oh, this is connected to your son's, state plan, because he's on like Child Health Plus with New York State, which I'm happy about. But now they're trying to link that, and they're like, I need income verification for that. And I'm like, no, like just insure my kid. I'm paying you.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.